Hey guys, what's up? This is the Bushido Podcast, episode 2. I'm your host, Levi, and today I want to cover something that's been on my mind. I actually mentioned it briefly in the first episode about how I define really wanting something. And so basically the question I'm going to answer today is, what does it mean to want something? And going along with that, essentially digging deeper, the next question for me is, how can we make desire measurable or quantifiable? And for me, my definition of wanting is something that I'm taking daily action towards. So if we're going to quantify that, regardless of the size of the step, whether it's a big step or a small step, for me, it doesn't really matter, because if you're taking daily action towards something 365 days in a year, then that means you're going to take 365 steps closer to whatever goal that you have in mind, whatever it is you're working towards. If you can get in one daily step, whether it's a big goal like getting your black belt in jiu-jitsu, or even a small goal like something for the month, or a diet, could be anything. For me, it's not necessarily the size of the steps. You don't need to be making massive, giant leaps every day or every week, but it's really, and this is kind of getting at consistency, it's really getting at the daily action towards. And for me, what that really does is it enables me to sort through kind of my impulses or my half desires, and it forces me to prioritize, because it's all normal. You know, we all want a lot of things, whether that's literal things, or it could be skills or anything really. You know, take for example, like, I would love to learn how to play the piano. You know, that is to say, like, I want to learn how to play the piano, but is that something that I really want bad enough to take the time in the day to contribute towards? Because as an opportunity cost, that time that I'm dedicating towards playing the piano or practicing piano, that could be put towards something else. And so everything has the opportunity cost. Whatever you're doing, the opportunity cost of that is the next best thing that you could be doing. And I think somewhere in the Bible, I'm sure I'm gonna butcher the quote, but Jesus, or God, basically says, you know, if you're lukewarm, then I'm going to spit you out. Either be like hot or cold. And I think that's kind of getting that at the idea is, if you're not really going to commit to something, then why bother? And so for me, that idea of that commitment, that wanting, is the daily action. And so for me, as someone who, by my nature, I'm not a patient person, and so there's various ways in which that can express itself negatively in my life, whether that's interpersonal skills or reactions to things that happen in life, and that's fine. It's, you know, one of my cards that I've been dealt, but I don't view it as necessarily a bad thing, because in terms of being impatient, it also means that when I say I'm going to do something, that I'm also impatient with myself. So I say, like, okay, well, you're saying you're going to do this, but you're not taking the action to get yourself any closer towards that goal. So just be honest with yourself. And this is like my own self-talk. And this is what I say to myself, like, be honest with yourself. Do you really want this? Do you want this bad enough to sacrifice the time, the energy, and the motivation every day to do it? Because if not, maybe it's better to just be honest and say, you know, maybe I have a little bit of wanting for this, but I don't actually want it bad enough to set aside the time. And it's very freeing. I would highly recommend for people, especially people who, like me, I'm drawn to a lot of different things. I'm interested in a lot of different things. And for people like me, that we can really be just pulled apart and spread so thin to where we're not progressing towards what we want, because we're kind of frittering our time away on things that maybe we want a little bit, but it's not necessarily a priority. And so by asking yourself these hard questions and saying, do I really want this enough to sacrifice the time to advance towards that goal? And if the answer is no, that's fine. Just be honest and say, it's really not. And maybe it's not forever, but it could just be, in this season of my life, this goal is not going to serve me for, my short, medium, or long-term goals. And that will for you and say, hey, maybe I can circle back around to this in 5, 10, even 20 years. But right now I need to have a few goals and be working towards those. And in my experience, to really commit to something, that is where satisfaction lies. So take, for example, jiu-jitsu. That is something that I have dedicated myself in about the past year and a half. And as someone who, I've traveled, I've been all around the world, I've done a lot of different things, and it's been great. I'm so glad I tried all those things. But kind of acting on some advice I got from Jordan Peterson is after following that call to adventure, is what he calls it. And I think we all have that call to adventure, that call of getting out of our experience, of our comfort zone and experiencing new things. You need to push yourself out there into the chaos. And then from that, you will know like, oh, you know what? I did X, Y, and Z, and I really love Y. And I'm going to sacrifice A through X so that I can focus on Y and Z. And to really just go diving in head first and completely submerge yourself in something, it's something that I would say in our modern time is something that is more rare. My first experience with this was really when I learned Spanish. It was my first second language. So the first language that I had learned that was not my mother tongue. And I had been traveling around and making some bit of progress in Central and South America, but I didn't want to be that guy that it ended up like, oh yeah, I traveled through South America for a year and I didn't speak Spanish. So eventually I decided to stay in one place and really just hunker down and totally commit myself. And the amount of progress that I was able to make in a relatively short time, we're talking like a period of months, was, I would say, pretty remarkable. It was a huge confidence booster and just really opened my eyes up to the possibility of what we are capable of when we really commit to something. And granted, I know that's not an option for everyone. We do have normal lives, work, jobs, family, and work-life balance. I'm a huge proponent of course, we need that. But if you were to really ask yourself some hard questions of how much time do you waste during the day, especially now with social media, I know I'm guilty of it, of course. Like, at the end of the day, if there was even 30 minutes that you wasted, then you have to be honest with yourself and say like, hey, if there's goals that I have and I wasted 30 minutes watching whatever it is on whatever social media, then I really don't value that goal. And that's okay. I'm not telling anyone what goals you should or shouldn't have. I'm just saying, be honest with yourself. And maybe if you can be honest with yourself and say, I don't really want that, and you can let it go, and then that will enable the space in your mind and your time to say, but you know what I really do want is this other thing. Because if you really want something, you will be so on fire and passionate to do it, you won't even want to waste time on social media. Social media has its benefits. It's a great communication tool. I'm not going to be preaching to anyone to say don't use it. It's a tool. You should use it to its benefits. But just like any tool or anything, if you use it too much, it's going to have negative consequences. And so by finding something that you really authentically want and can get passionate about, that is really what's going to awaken the drive inside of you to get it done. And so I want to pose an idea to you in terms of the idea of, kind of the idea of the chicken or the egg. And so, do I dedicate myself to jiu-jitsu because I love it, or do I love it because I dedicated myself? And I think most people would say that on the surface, like, oh, you really love this thing, and that's why you do it so much. And on one hand, that does kind of make sense. Obviously, if you really enjoy something, you're going to do it more. But I would say in my experience, it was very much the opposite. I had practiced jiu-jitsu before and I knew that I enjoyed it, but it wasn't until the point at which I said, you know what, I know I enjoy this and I know that I want to dedicate myself to something. I don't want to be just mediocre at a bunch of different things. And so when I decided to get serious and dedicate myself, that's actually when my passion for the sport really ignited. So I would say that the passion came after the dedication, whereas most people would most likely say, I would say, that the dedication comes after the passion. And I'm not saying that's the case for everyone. I'm sure everyone falls on different ends of the spectrum. But what I do want to, the point that I do want to make is you don't necessarily have to wait to find something that you're passionate about to dedicate yourself. If you even know that there's something that you like, then I say, look, just go for it. And you might be surprised just how much passion arises out of you when you become dedicated to something. And it's like a whole world. You pass through a narrow tunnel and then you get onto the other side and you see, wow, there's a whole world to this hobby or sport or work or whatever it is that you dedicate yourself that you didn't even know was there. And so just to finish off, basically, I would say the feeling of laying your head on the pillow at night after really pushing yourself to achieve your dreams, or maybe dreams is kind of wishy-washy. Your goals, your desires, your dreams, whatever it is you want to call it, you know in your head what it is that you want. And so do the work, prioritize what you really, really want and are willing to work hard and sacrifice for every day, and get rid of the rest of the stuff that's really just clouding up your mind. It's clouding your passion, your energy, your time. Your time is all you have. It's your only asset. The rest, time, the money that you have, that is just time that you traded. You traded your time and your energy for money. But you can't go the other way around. You can't trade your money for time. So be very judicious with that. Think like, okay, this is my time. I might have a half an hour. I don't know what your life circumstances are. Maybe you only have a half an hour to dedicate what you want. But I guarantee you, as someone, I picked up guitar later in life, in my 20s, you would be so surprised how much progress you can make with literally 30 dedicated minutes to any practice that is, whether it's yoga, meditation, can be fitness. You can accomplish so much with so little time if you're really focused and using that time and you know. But if you're not prioritizing and you're just have your head full of these half desires and you're doing one thing kind of the one day and then the next day you're kind of doing another different thing the next day, that's just how you go by. 5 years goes by and you look back and say, oh wow, just imagine if I had dedicated myself to one thing, I would probably be badass. I mean, I think I saw this from John Danaher talking about, John Danaher's a really well-known, famous jiu-jitsu coach. He trains one of the best jiu-jitsu athletes currently in the world, Gordon Ryan. And he was talking about how in 5 years you can make completely life-changing habits. So I think the example that he used was Mike Tyson. And so I forget Mike Tyson's coach, but basically he was a well-known coach throughout boxing who got a hold of Mike when he was maybe in his early teens, 13 or 14. And then by the time he was 20, so that would have been like 5 or 6 years later, he was an absolute force to be reckoned with, crushing heavyweights and everything. So 5 years it seems like a long time when we're here in the present looking out 5 years, but I guarantee you, if you dedicate yourself to something and then look back 5 years, you're going to be saying, wow, look at all the progress I made. And all it is, it's like taking one Lego and putting it on every day. You put another Lego on, and then the next day you put another little Lego on. And in every day and then action, it feels like so little. When I go to jiu-jitsu, it's not like I'm going in and just crushing it every day and feeling like I'm making huge progress. Sometimes I go in and I'm feeling it and it feels great and have some great rolls. And other days I'm not feeling it and I'm tired and I get my ass kicked. And that's normal. But it's just about getting in there, putting in the time, just like this. That's the same thing with the podcast today. I could have just said, oh, you know what? I don't have a guest on. I want to do the next one as a guest. But I say, fuck that. It doesn't matter. I don't need a guest. That's just an excuse. That's an excuse for me to say, oh, you know what? I'll do it tomorrow. But if I'm really honest with myself, do I need a guest? Do I need that? No. Do I need a fancy camera? Do I need a fancy microphone? Do I need fancy anything? No. Don't need any of that. That is all just excuses, in my opinion. If you really want something, you're not going to let that hold you back. I'm recording on my computer. I got this microphone for like $20 off Amazon. That's all you need. And if you're putting out good content, people will come. That's my theory. And so I need structure to know if I'm advancing. And by setting myself the standard of doing something every day, that helps guide my daily decisions. And if you don't have that Northern Star to really guide your daily decisions, you're going to have a rough time, in my opinion, because you're just adrift at sea. You're being pulled apart by all these different desires and emotions and this and that, and that's normal. But by having this North Star, this guiding light of saying, for me, you know what, no matter what, I'm up at 6 and I'm going to be at jiu-jitsu at 7, and that's that. It doesn't matter how I feel. Obviously, if I'm injured or something, there's extenuating circumstances, but in the terms of like the actual day-to-day, it's just, it doesn't matter. The alarm goes off, I get up, and I'm going. And I'm going to take it takes that same grit, that same drive, that same tenacity to succeed in any endeavor. I'm just taking, my only strategy to succeed at podcasting is literally taking that exact same mentality, that exact same attitude, and applying it to this. I'm going to get in, I'm going to make a video, I'm going to put together some good content, and I don't need to be out there getting 1 million subscribers in a year. All I have to do is be going out and having a good impact on people's lives, putting out positive vibes, positive energy, and I'll attract positivity and people back into my life. And at the end of the day, that's all we're really searching for. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Was definitely a bit ranting on this one, but I felt like I could get into a pretty good flow. As always, anything you want to put in the comments is great. I'll definitely be looking through those more as time goes on so I can see what people are looking for. And thanks for being along on this journey with me. Peace.